Oh no! A drop stitch feels like a huge catastrophe when you're knitting. Sometimes the stitch doesn't make it from one needle to the other and starts to drop down in your fabric, leaving big holes. But don't worry. Hi, I'm Hannah from knitting.com, and today we're going to learn how to fix a dropped stitch. First things first, don't panic! Drop stitches are one of the most common mistakes in knitting and can happen to anyone. They still happen to me all the time. Before you jump in and try to fix a drop stitch, let's take a little time to figure out what went wrong. You're going to want to look at your fabric and decide and see if you can tell how far back the drop stitch happened. Did it drop just a little bit or drop all the way? It doesn't really matter. The techniques are still the same, so don't worry about it. We'll fix it no matter how far down that stitch has gone. So the first thing you're going to want to do is lay your swatch or your project flat so that you're not accidentally letting that stitch drop down further. So you can see the ladders going up here, and then here is the stitch where it's fallen down. It's still hooked through here, so it's not completely all the way down. If it goes all the way down, you're in a little bit of trouble. You might want to just start over. In this case, it's dropped down to here. We can still fix it. So what I'm going to do is insert my crochet hook through that stitch and just kind of rescue it and let it sit there for a minute so it doesn't keep dropping down. Next, you're going to want to pull your fabric apart. You can see the ladders, which is what the open stitches are called, look like rungs on a ladder. You want to find the next one up, so you don't want to skip any, otherwise you'll have a floating loop on the back, and then this next stitch will be longer than the other ones. So you find the one right above where that stitch is dropped down, and because this is a knit side, we're going to keep those loops in the back. If it was a purl, we would keep them in the front, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit later. So for now, we've got the stitch on our hook. We're going to go ahead and grab that ladder with the hook. So I like to insert it behind the stitch or behind the ladder. Grab it with the head and pull it through, just like that. And then you'll be able to see it's created another stitch. So we're just going to do that a couple more times until we get all the way back up to the needles and you've grabbed every ladder along the way. So again, we're going to pick up that next ladder, run the crochet hook behind that stitch or the ladder, grab it, and pull it through the stitch that's on your hook. We keep doing that until we get back up to our knitting needle. Last one. So again, you grab it, make sure that that hook is grabbing it and pulling it all the way through. So now you've reached back to the top of your knitting. The last step, and the thing to be kind of careful about, is see which way your stitches are sitting on your needles. They're all facing this way rather than this way. You're going to want to put that stitch back on your knitting needle facing the same direction as the other one so it's not twisted. So here, they're facing in opposite directions. An easy way to fix that is to just flip your crochet hook around. Now they're all facing the same direction. Insert your knitting needle through, and you're back right where you started before the stitch dropped off. That's how to fix a drop stitch on stockinette or a knit side of fabric. Okay, so you've got a garter stitch swatch here, but you also have, a drop stitch, which means that a stitch didn't make it from one needle to the next and instead dropped down into the fabric, leaving these big loops behind called ladders. They look like ladders, rungs on a ladder. What we're going to be doing is we're going to rescue this drop stitch and thread these back through until we've worked back up to the same row we were on and put that loop back onto the knitting needle, and then you can keep on working as if it never happened. The first step you want to do is, you can use a locking stitch marker, you can use a needle, something to grab a hold of this stitch so it doesn't keep dropping down and making a bigger mess. Also, I always prefer to use a crochet hook to pick up drop stitches. It's faster, it's easier, it's just less frustrating. You can also use a knitting needle It's just a little bit fiddlier. I'm going to show you with a crochet hook today. The principle is the same. So you can use whatever you have. If you have a hook, it's better. Also, try and match it to whatever size needles you're working with or a size smaller, just so it's easier to work. I wouldn't go bigger because that's going to be pretty difficult to pick stitches up. Okay, so we're going to insert our hook through the stitch just to hold on to it while we figure out what's happening. Because this is garter stitch, every other row when you pick it up, it's going to be a knit or a purl row. Even though you're knitting back and forth flat for garter, the way you pick it up is a knit row or a purl row because the back side of a knit stitch is a purl stitch. So every other row is going to have a purl stitch facing you because the knit stitch is on the back side. Okay, so looking at our fabric, I can tell that this ended on a purl stitch because of that bump. If it was a knit stitch, you'd have a V here. And I'll show you what that looks like when we pick this up because I will pick it up knitwise, so as if it is a knit stitch, and you'll see that V at the bottom. So because it's a purl, we're going to do the opposite of whatever we're seeing here, which would be a knit in this case. You want to find the top ladder, the first ladder to that stitch, closest to the stitch that you can get. If you skip it, then you will have a loop on the back side or your stitches will be uneven. You'll see kind of the count gets off. So you always want to make sure you're not missing one back there. Find that loop. And because it's a knit stitch, or the way we're hooking it through is knitwise, you can grab that with your hand, insert your crochet hook through the front of the stitch flat. So you're going in through the front, you're going behind the ladder, just that one. Then you're going to hook it through, pulling it towards yourself, just like that. So you've gone up one row now. You can see the knit V now. So if you had dropped it and it ended on a knit row, it would look like this. Then you'd pick up the next stitch as if it was a purl. To do a purl pickup, you're gonna again find that next ladder down. Might be a little tricky, take your time. So here's the next one down. What you're actually going to do, and this might be a little scary, is you're going to pinch that stitch and you're going to take your hook out. You're going to move that loop, the ladder, to the front, so it's sitting in front of your work. You're going to insert your hook back through the top of the stitch here, from back to front, underneath that ladder. You're going to pull it through. So you can see why a crochet hook would be a little bit easier than maybe a knitting needle that doesn't have a hook to help you out. All right, again, we're going to find the next ladder, which is this one. And you're going to actually pull your hook out again. So pinch that stitch, pull your hook out, insert from the front to the back because it's going to be a knit, hook the ladder by going underneath it, pull it through, and again, let go. Take your hook out by pinching that stitch, and you're going to find that last ladder, move it to the front, keep a hold of that stitch so it doesn't drop again, insert your hook from back to front, underneath that loop, and then pull it through. So now you've worked all the way back up to your knitting needle. I just like to hold it. You don't need to keep the crochet hook in unless you want to. The next thing to look at is which direction your stitches are slanting. On this side, they're going this way. So you want to make sure that when you put it on, the twist in your stitch matches the direction. So if I put it on kind of backwards, actually that looks pretty good. So you want to make sure that the loops are laying and they're twisting the same way. Yep, there we go. So now that you've got your strand rescued, your stitch rescued, you can go ahead and keep on knitting as if it never happened. And that's how you fix a drop stitch. Ta-da! And that was how to fix a drop stitch. If you found this tutorial helpful, be sure to click the thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Subscribe to knitting.com if you'd like to stay in the loop and check out our other social media channels. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Happy knitting!